What if the story of humanity began with a woman as powerful as she was rebellious? A woman created before Eve, yet erased from the annals of history. Who was Lilith, and why does her story remain one of the most controversial secrets of all time? Long before Eve was created, before the world as we know it took shape, there was Lilith, the first woman, not made from Adam's rib, but created to stand equal by his side. The idea of her as the first wife, the first partner, challenges everything we thought we knew about the origins of humanity. But Lilith's tale isn't told in many places. Her name, once known, became a whisper, a footnote in ancient history. And in some accounts, her defiance, her strength, led to her disappearance from the scriptures altogether. What happened to Lilith? Why does she remain hidden in the shadows of biblical lore? Join us as we uncover the untold story of Lilith, the first woman before Eve. A tale of creation, power, and the mysteries that still linger in the forgotten corners of ancient texts. In the beginning, when creation was unfolding, the first woman was not made from a rib. Instead, she was forged from the very same earth as the first man, Lilith. A name that echoes through ancient texts, often misunderstood but powerful in its significance. Unlike the story of Eve, created from Adam's rib to be his companion, Lilith was made from the same earth that Adam was. This was not a mere detail. It signified equality, a relationship built on shared origins, not hierarchy. Where Eve was formed to be a part of Adam, Lilith was created to stand alongside him as his equal, not subservient to him, but his counterpart in every way. Lilith was strong, independent, and unwavering in her belief in her own power. She was not fashioned to bend to Adam's will, but to share the dominion over the earth. Imagine her as a woman fully capable of standing on her own, fully aware of her worth. In her eyes, equality meant just that, equality. She could not be defined by anyone else. This is where the conflict began. Lilith, in her strength, rejected the idea of subordination. She could not accept a world where she was lesser, even if that meant challenging the divine order itself. Unlike Eve, whose creation emphasized the idea of companionship born from Adam's flesh, Lilith's creation was a declaration of strength, independence, and the right to stand beside Adam as his equal. The Bible, in its earliest texts, remains vague about Lilith's existence, but the Alphabet of Ben Sira, an ancient Jewish text, reveals a different perspective, one where Lilith emerges as Adam's first partner. The story told here is not one of harmony, but of tension. Lilith refuses to submit to Adam, and in that refusal, we see her true power, her will to live freely, outside the confines of expectation. The story of Lilith in these texts is a reminder of the original intention behind her creation. To be strong, to be independent, to be equal. But in that strength, her story takes a turn. And this tension, this struggle for equality, marks the beginning of her mysterious and controversial disappearance from mainstream religious narratives. It was a moment of conflict, a clash of wills, a battle of beliefs that would shape the fate of the first woman and the world she knew. Lilith's refusal to submit to Adam came at a time when expectations about gender roles were first being carved. She wasn't created to serve or obey, she was created to stand beside him. And when it came to matters of intimacy and partnership, Lilith demanded equality. She would not lie beneath Adam as though she were less than him. She wanted a relationship of true partnership, one where both were equals, neither dominant nor submissive. Adam, for all his strength, could not accept this. His frustration grew. To him, it was clear. She was his equal in creation, yes, but as a woman, she was expected to be subservient in their relationship. His demand was simple. Lilith must lie beneath him, as a woman was expected to. But Lilith, with her fiery will, rejected this idea entirely. Her refusal was not a minor disagreement. It was a declaration of her independence. She could not and would not accept a world where dominance replaced partnership. And so, Lilith rebelled. In an act of defiance, Lilith left the Garden of Eden. She chose to walk away from the paradise that had been given to her, to leave behind the man who could not understand her need for equality. This was no small act. It was an act of liberation. Lilith's departure symbolized not just a rejection of Adam's dominance, but also her own liberation from a system that sought to diminish her power. In many religious texts, this moment of rebellion was condemned. Lilith, in her pursuit of autonomy, was cast out. Her actions were seen as a violation of divine order, a refusal to accept the place that had been assigned to her in the world. But in reality, her rebellion was a step toward self-liberation, a defiance against the roles that were thrust upon her, a stand for her right to define her own destiny. The decision to leave Eden was not a fleeting one. It was a choice born from the depths of Lilith's soul, a choice to break free, to reject the roles forced upon her, and to walk away from the paradise she was created in. But in doing so, she set into motion a series of consequences that would echo through the ages. When Lilith left the Garden of Eden, it was not just the end of a relationship. It was the beginning of her transformation. She wandered away from the place where humanity had its roots, crossing the boundaries of the known world, eventually finding herself on the shores of the Red Sea. Here, on this desolate and barren land, Lilith's story would take a darker turn. As she stood on the shores, far from Adam, far from Eden, Lilith's transformation began. She was no longer just the first woman, the equal of Adam. The world she had known, the paradise that had once been her home, had no place for her now. In the absence of acceptance, Lilith embraced a new identity. She became something different, something feared. She became a demoness. In some accounts, it is said that Lilith's time away from Eden led her to form an allegiance with the fallen angels, and it is here that she became known as the mother of the demons, the Lilith. Her new form was a twisted reflection of her former self. No longer a symbol of equality and independence, she was now a figure associated with seduction, darkness, and temptation. Lilith's transformation into this dark figure marked her fall from grace, but it also marked her as an embodiment of the very qualities that had led to her expulsion: rebellion, lust, and unyielding independence. Her story, however, did not end there. Lilith's departure was just the beginning of the myths that would shape her legacy. In many cultures and traditions, she was said to have cursed Adam's descendants, especially women and children. In some texts, she became the embodiment of vengeance, her rage directed at those who represented the very system she had fought against. Women who struggled with fertility, infants who fell ill, and children who disappeared were often attributed to Lilith's wrath. Her curse, a reflection of her own pain and anger, painted her as a dangerous, unrelenting force, one that could not be controlled, even in the afterlife. Over time, Lilith's name became synonymous with rebellion. In later mythologies and folklore, she was painted as a symbol of sexual freedom, of independence taken to its most extreme form. Her lust, once a symbol of power, became a threat to those who saw in her a challenge to the established order. Yet, even in these stories, Lilith's true power remains undeniable. She was never a simple villain. She was a woman who dared to live on her own terms, who sought equality and rejected submission. Her departure from Eden, her transformation, and the curse she cast upon the world reflect her struggle to maintain control over her own destiny, even in the face of overwhelming odds. For centuries, Lilith's name was relegated to the shadows, her story buried beneath layers of religious doctrine and societal expectations. But in the quiet corners of history, her legend continued to flicker, waiting for the moment to resurface. This is the story of how Lilith, the first woman, was suppressed and forgotten, and how, eventually, she would return to reclaim her power. The suppression of Lilith's story in mainstream religious texts is as enigmatic as the woman herself. Despite being created before Eve and playing a pivotal role in the earliest versions of the biblical narrative, Lilith was deliberately omitted from most religious scriptures. Why? The answer lies in the power dynamics of the time. Religious authorities, seeking to define clear gender roles, could not allow a figure like Lilith to stand as a symbol of equality, rebellion, and independence. Her refusal to submit to Adam's dominance directly challenged the traditional narrative of woman's place in relation to man. For centuries, her story was silenced, her name lost to the pages of history. Lilith was cast aside, and her defiance was deemed too dangerous, too disruptive for the doctrines that sought to maintain a strict hierarchy between men and women. But despite this suppression, Lilith's legend didn't vanish. She was not erased completely. Instead, she slipped into the margins of folklore, myth, and oral traditions. Over time, whispers of her story began to surface in literature and art, reclaiming her place in the narrative as a figure of strength and rebellion. As centuries passed, Lilith's portrayal began to evolve. In literature and the arts, she emerged as a symbol of feminism, rebellion, and empowerment. Writers, poets, and artists began to reimagine Lilith not as a demoness to be feared, but as a woman who had dared to defy the confines of society. She became an icon of female autonomy, a representation of the struggle for equality, and a symbol of the power that lies in embracing one's own independence. Her story found new life in the 19th and 20th centuries, with feminist writers and thinkers using her as a symbol of liberation and empowerment. Writers like John Milton, in Paradise Lost, and later Helen Adam, in her poetic works explored Lilith's defiance and independence, turning her into a symbol of female strength rather than just an outcast. In modern times, Lilith's return has been nothing short of spectacular. Today, she is a figure who transcends the limitations of her ancient story. She's been resurrected in popular culture, portrayed as a powerful autonomous figure in films, TV shows, and books. Lilith's reappearance is not just a return to her roots, but a reimagining of what it means to be powerful, independent, and unapologetically yourself. Television shows such as Supernatural and Lucifer have embraced Lilith's dark, seductive energy, making her a force to be reckoned with in the world of fiction. She's been depicted as everything from a rebellious fallen angel to a demoness who wields power over the forces of chaos. In these modern interpretations, Lilith is no longer a victim of divine rejection, but a woman who stands on her own terms, unapologetically embracing her power. Her resurgence in popular culture is not just about reclaiming her power as a figure from mythology. It's about embracing the ideals she stood for: autonomy, rebellion, and the strength to forge one's own path. Lilith, once forgotten, is now standing boldly in the light once again, an icon of strength, independence, and the enduring fight for equality. From the shadows of her rebellion, Lilith's legacy grew darker and more mysterious. As the centuries passed, the figure of Lilith was transformed into something far more sinister, a demoness who haunted the minds of people, invoking fear and superstition. What began as a tale of independence and defiance evolved into a myth of terror and vengeance, a symbol of untamed power that preyed on the most vulnerable. Lilith's transformation into a demonic figure is one of the most enduring aspects of her legacy. No longer just the first woman, the equal of Adam, she was now depicted as a dark entity, a creature of the night with a terrifying power over life and death. In many traditions, she was believed to prey on newborn children, particularly infants who died under mysterious circumstances. The stories told of her stealing babies in the dead of night, taking their lives, and leaving only grief in her wake. But Lilith's malevolence did not stop there. She was also associated with women during childbirth, a time when vulnerability and danger met in the most primal way. In many cultures, she was thought to be the demon who would come to claim the life of a woman giving birth, causing complications and ensuring that death was inevitable. In this way, Lilith was seen not just as a figure of seduction and rebellion, but as an embodiment of death itself, a terrifying reminder of the fragility of life. This myth of Lilith as a demoness, preying on the vulnerable, is one that has persisted across various cultures for centuries. Her image was forever tied to the fear of the unknown, the dark forces that lurked on the edges of human existence. Lilith became the nightmare that mothers whispered about, the demon that midwives feared, and the figure that haunted the lonely corners of ancient folklore. Yet, Lilith's influence was not confined to just one culture. She was a figure that spread across the ancient world, touching mythologies and religions from Sumer to Mesopotamia and beyond. In Sumerian traditions, she is often depicted as a night demon or a dangerous figure associated with the storm gods, embodying chaos and destruction. The Sumerians believed she was a demoness that could control the forces of nature, calling on the winds and storms to do her bidding. In Mesopotamian mythology, she was seen as a seductress, luring men into her web of darkness. She became a symbol of danger, the tempter of men, pulling them into a world of ruin and sorrow. Her role as a seductress, a demon of lust, was intertwined with her power to destroy the very fabric of life and creation. Some texts even describe her as a she-demon who would drain the life force of men during the night, causing them to waste away. Lilith's dark influence did not stop in these ancient civilizations. Her story traveled through the ages, her mythos influencing later cultures and religions. She became a figure that transcended borders, a symbol of rebellion against the divine order, a woman whose strength and independence made her a figure of both awe and fear. From the ancient Sumerians to the Greeks, and later to medieval European folklore, Lilith's name continued to strike fear into the hearts of those who believed in her dark power. Her myth evolved, adapted, and found new life in different traditions, always representing the same core ideas: rebellion, seduction, and destruction. As with any great myth, the story of Lilith remains shrouded in ambiguity. Was she a misunderstood figure, a woman who defied the constraints placed upon her, or did she truly become the monster her myth made her out to be? Her fate is as mysterious as her actions, leaving us to question the true nature of her rebellion. Lilith's story, with its complex layers of defiance, independence, and transformation, leaves us wondering, was she a victim of a world that sought to suppress her power, or did she, in her rebellion, become something darker than her creators intended? The ambiguity surrounding Lilith's fate is not just about her actions. It's about the larger question of how we judge the actions of those who refuse to conform. Was her rebellion against Adam and against the divine order an act of self-liberation, or was it the beginning of her descent into chaos and destruction? Throughout history, many have painted Lilith as a villain, a demoness, a seductress, a threat to the established order. But was she truly evil? Or did she simply refuse to accept a role that was imposed upon her? The myth of Lilith is filled with contradictions. A woman who was created equal but cast aside, a figure of rebellion who became the embodiment of lust and vengeance. Her story forces us to confront these uncomfortable questions. Can rebellion, even one so fierce, be justified? And is it possible to redeem a figure who has been condemned by society for standing up for her own autonomy? In modern interpretations, the view of Lilith has shifted. She is no longer seen as just a demonic figure. Today, Lilith is often viewed as a symbol of strength, independence, and the refusal to accept oppression. Feminists and progressive thinkers have reclaimed her as an icon of empowerment, a woman who stood up to patriarchal authority and refused to be controlled by anyone. In this light, Lilith's rebellion becomes not a sign of villainy, but of courage. Her story has been reinterpreted in countless ways. In literature, in art, in modern-day media. Lilith has been depicted as a symbol of women's autonomy, a representation of the power that comes from rejecting societal expectations. No longer confined to the role of the villain, she stands as a symbol of personal freedom and empowerment. But still, the question lingers. Was Lilith a villain who sought destruction, or was she a woman who refused to be controlled? Was she a tragic figure whose actions were misunderstood, or was she someone who chose her own path at any cost, regardless of the consequences? What do you believe? As we reflect on Lilith's story, one thing is clear. Her legacy challenges the narratives we've been taught. Her tale forces us to confront the complexities of independence, rebellion, and power. But what do you think? Was Lilith simply a villain, or was she a woman ahead of her time, fighting for equality and the right to define her own destiny? Her journey raises more questions than answers, and now it's your turn to reflect. What do you believe about Lilith? Was she misunderstood, or did her actions lead her down an inevitable dark path? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below and let us know how you view Lilith's story. Do you think she was a hero, or was she a warning of the dangers of rebellion? And don't forget to share this video with others who might be curious about these untold stories from history. Let's start a conversation about the myths and figures that have shaped our understanding of the world. Lilith's story may have been erased from the pages of history, but it's time we take a closer look at the woman who was here long before Eve. She challenges the ideas we've accepted, and her legacy is one we can no longer ignore.